Hi, I'm Autumn,
And I'm Laura,
and together we're
the
the
Boo
Boo Sisters.
Sisters.
So I have my hot cocoa and a cozy ghost blanket, and I am ready for some spooky stories today. How about you, Laura?
Yep, I've got hot chocolate. I was gonna say let's do like some ASMR with some sipping of some hot chocolate, but there are people who really don't like that, so we probably shouldn't.
Wait, what is ASMR?
Oh, it's like the audio sensory something where you like do the sounds.
Ew, I don't think I like that. So today, Boo Crew, something funny happened because when Laura and I checked in about our stories that we were going to tell, we both had stories, ironically, from the United Kingdom, correct?
What?
Yeah. So this is our impromptu international episode that we did not plan, but it just happened to work out
Yay!
that way.
We like international episodes. There's so many
Yeah.
more ghosts in old places across the ocean.
And this is our shout out to the United Kingdom, to all our friends over there listening.
Hopefully, we
So
don't
yeah.
say any names and things the wrong way. No
Oh,
promises.
I'm certain that that's going to happen for sure. But Laura, before we jump in, I know we have really great stories today and we're just going to jump in really quickly, but I have to tell you this fun fact I learned when I was looking around at the UK.
Okay, fun facts. Let's go.
In York, which York is said to be the hauntest, the
The
hauntest,
hauntest.
the most hauntiest? Is that a word? Can we make that a
No,
word?
we could
Oh,
make it all word. Sure, why not?
hauntiest, the most haunted city in the world. And in York, they have a store called York Ghost Merchants. And you can go in the store and buy these cute little ghost statues that are all different and they're all like handcrafted and painted different and from different stone and
Oh,
stuff.
that's
And they're
cool.
so cute. The lore is that every ghost is attached to a real spirit from the UK, from the
Hmm.
most haunted city in the world. And so that you're actually taking home a ghost, like a real ghost. That's the legend.
I don't know if I like that.
I
I
love it.
I like that there are statues that are handmade and they're little ghosties, but I don't know that I would want to. I mean, we hope that they were taken or encouraged to be in a statue. I don't know, not against their will, right?
Right. But I think it's just fun, like folklore. I don't know. Like I don't think they could really attach ghosts, but maybe some of them are. But this store can get up to a 3 hour long line, like wrapped around the block,
Whoa.
just to go in and pick out your little ghosty. Because it's just like a cute little tiny storefront, and
It
they only
is
have
that
so
all
much
they sell
room.
or
Yeah, just these tiny little ghost
oh,
statues.
interesting. So it's like
And
in Harry Potter, like the wand shop and the ghost has to
yeah,
choose
that's what it
you.
reminded me of. Is like is
Ollivanders.
yeah, or Diagon Alley and all the cute little shops. But I think you go in and the ghost does chose you. Sometimes they do secret drops online where you can be entered into like a pool, and if you're selected, then you have the opportunity to buy a ghost online because they don't have
Hmm.
very many that they put out there online. And I was like, oh, I really, really want to do this online pool. Like, I want to be selected. But then I don't feel like it would be as fun as going to the shop and like
Mm-hmm.
feeling being selected by a ghost.
Feeling drawn to one. You just get
Yeah.
saddled with one,
Yeah. But
like
you
the
should,
cranky old man ghost.
that's probably what I would get. But you should go on and look at their website at all like the beautiful different kinds of ghosts they have. They have pictures of them and it's so fun. And I wish that I could get to York. Me and you should, maybe that should be our our
Just a
road
road
trip
trip to
across the
York. That's
ocean.
it. We're just going to the ghost shop and then we're coming right back.
Yeah. Anyway, it was a really cute thing. And if anyone's been to it, any of our friends in the UK, we'd love to hear. And if someone wants to go feel drawn to a ghost and then ship it to me, I will reward you with
I will
payment.
reward you
I will reward you with payment.
with further podcast episodes.
Yeah, that's what I have to give. Anyway, that's it. That's all I got. We have a long episode, I think, today because our stories are so great. So we should probably hop into it.
That sounds good to me. Are you ready?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So my haunt today is on Clophill Church in Bedfordshire, UK.
That was
I'm
like a
not,
mixture
that's like an accent.
of accent and then back to American. That was the weirdest thing.
It's
Okay.
sort of like Spanglish, but it's like Brit-English.
Brit-English. We're gonna make that a
I'm
word
I'm
also.
feeling a bit Brit-English today.
This is our episode where we make a new dictionary.
That sounds good. I always like making up words. Okay, so Clophill Church, also known as Old St. Mary's Church in Clophill, sounds on paper like an adorable little quaint church set in the English countryside with chirping birds and fields of blooming flowers. But its 600-year history paints a much different picture, one of dripping candle wax, bones, and dark magic. With foundations estimated to have been built around 1350, very little is known about the land prior to that time, though some believe it was built over a medieval leper colony where those who were sick and suffered from the plague were left to die. For one reason or another, it was abandoned for almost 200 years until 1840 when it saw use once more. The little church on the hill served the local community for centuries until the population outgrew it and the rector died in 1943, leading to his successor building a larger church in a more convenient location in town. Why more convenient, you ask? Because to reach the old St. Mary's Church, even to this very day, you must first travel an old winding gravel road to a point at which cars no longer fit. The rest of the long uphill gravel track must be taken by foot, and it's quite the hike. Some say the population is the primary reason the church was abandoned. Others claim it was the inconvenience to get to worship, because people are lazy,
So
ultimately.
people had to walk to the church
Yeah, people
to
walk to
go
the
to
church all the
church.
time. Yeah.
Hmm. Okay. It
And
reminds me of the holiday where she gets dropped off in the car like miles away from that cabin and
mhm,
she has to walk the rest of the way in her
it
heels.
probably is that very place. She
That's
probably was
what
in
it reminds me
Bedfordshire.
of. That cabin is in Surrey.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't know.
Is that close? We have
Guys,
like
we
no
don't
idea.
know. We don't know what the map looks like.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so some say it was abandoned because the population. Others claim it was the inconvenience to get to worship, and still others believe it could be for other reasons entirely, reasons that are much darker in nature. It is said that from the very beginning, Clophill Church was cursed for being built wrong. And by wrong, I mean the wrong direction. I learned this in my research. This is a fun thing that maybe Autumn you already know. In those times, churches were supposed to be built facing the cardinal directions. East and west represented the resurrection and birth of Christ. The altar was traditionally placed on the east wall, representing the resurrection, and the entrance on the west. The
Hmm.
south represented heaven. That's where the bodies were traditionally buried in a little gravestone cemetery. And the north represented hell, where only suicides were meant to be buried because that ground was forever in shadow by the building itself.
That's strange. Why would the north be shadowed though if it's being built east to west?
Just the way the sun is directionally because of where we are in the northern hemisphere.
Oh, okay, Bill. I understand. Like not everywhere.
Yeah, this is more of a, again, English tradition, I would say, probably.
That's interesting. I did not know that.
Northern tradition, maybe I should
I'm
say.
going to be driving around judging churches now.
So it is said that churches which did not follow the structural plan opened a doorway to hell.
Hmm.
And that was thought to be the case with Clophill Church. Though it is worth noting that I found very contradicting reports on the actual original layout of the church, so it may or may not follow the cardinal directions, But just keep in mind that that could be a reason why it has this dark history.
Got it.
But a fact that is not disputed is that very shortly after the new St. Mary's Church was built, the old one became a mortuary, or a dead house, as it was called. It was a place where the dead were stored or even viewed prior to the burial in the little cemetery next to the original building. This was its primary use until 1896, when they opened a new burial ground on the east side of the church and stopped using the building itself. During that time, it's suspected that the church became a prime target for body snatchers and grave robbers, especially those in search of lead-lined coffins, because apparently lead, came at a premium. In a letter from 1904, the rector, Mr. Bosanquet, told his nephew that, quote, "When we examined the ground where the old chancel stood, we found a heap of skulls, altogether shewing that the remains had been disturbed and lead coffins probably stolen."
Ugh.
I love the Old English is very fun. The
Because
words, how they're spelled.
What are they using lead for? Like bullets and stuff?
Lead was valued for its use in various industrial applications, including plumbing and batteries.
Plumbing and batteries.
The demand for lead increased due to the growth of industries and manufacturing at the turn of the century. Others believe the lead could be used for making bullets or weapons. It was often used to get quick cash by those in poverty.
Okay.
So the grave robbing for lead, would only be the beginning of the disturbances for the graves for those laid to rest at the church. In fact, theft continued to be a problem all the way up until 1956, when the lead roof of the church itself was stolen. How does one even steal a roof, guys?
Oh my goodness. I guess you'd have to take your hammer, pry out the nails.
I don't mean like physically. I mean, like, how do you get a roof off when you can't even get a car up there?
I mean, it has to be like piece by piece.
Right. There have to be
like
essentially
tiny piece by tiny
shingle
piece.
type
Yeah.
things, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. But apparently roof stealing is a thing as long as it's lead.
That's sad.
Yeah, it is sad, because then with the roof gone, the church fell into further ruin as just this shell of its former self.
Yeah, those poor old buildings.
So somewhere within this time frame, the vicar himself claimed the ruins were haunted by a ghost. Maybe it was a story meant to keep the trespassers out. Some people think so. Or maybe it was in fact the truth. It is conjecture. But there is a story that dates back to 1961 that I'm going to tell you that also is the start of the dark part of the church's history, even if you don't believe in the ghost aspect just yet. So this detour takes you off church property. In August 1961, Clophill gained attention and notoriety for a horrible murder that took place. A man named James Hanratty, also known as the A6 murderer, yes, he was a serial killer, killed scientist Michael Gregston in his car on the nearby Dead Man's Hill. Hanratty also sexually assaulted and shot Michael's girlfriend Valerie, who he then left paralyzed, thinking she was dead.
Yikes.
Yeah. So that happened really nearby where this church sits. Only 2 years later, in 1963, the thought of the simple greed-motivated grave robbers of years past vanished, with a new discovery made by two young boys. One day, upon adventuring on their bikes to the old church ruins that were supposedly haunted, they found inside a grisly sight. Human bones had been strewn about the floor in the shape of a pentagram.
Oh my gosh.
Along with that was the bloody cockerel feathers and finger-smeared blood crosses. In the very center of all of it was a skull impaled on a window spike that was driven deep into the floor.
Oh my gosh, why have I never heard of this place?
Newspapers immediately jumped on the story, claiming the church was a hot spot for, quote-unquote, a black mass, like black church service, and Satanism. Perhaps inspired by the darkness of the nearby murder, perhaps to call the ghost who lived inside, or perhaps because the church itself was a place of death with its doors open toward hell.
Oh gosh, you should not mess with that.
The current rector of Clophill, Reverend Lewis Barker, investigated this new disturbance further, revealing that the graves of several women had been damaged and one of them broken into. That grave belonged to one Jenny Humberstone, who died in 1770. Her coffin, unearthed and split open, was empty. It was the bones of 22-year-old Jenny that had been used in the dark ritual inside the church. But
Mm.
why? According to Reverend Barker, the bones of and corpses of women were used most often in satanic rituals, and perhaps hers was the only grave they could fully get open. According to others, however, there was something special about Jenny. By the church's own historical records, it came to be known that she was the wife of an apothecary. Do you know what an apothecary was, Autumn?
Medicine person.
Essentially, yes. So, an apothecary was something between a doctor, a pharmacist, and a chemist. They would
Mm-hmm.
traditionally use herbal remedies to soothe ailments and concoct medicines through experimentation that would resolve medical issues and help prolong someone's life. Because of this tie in from her history, some people believe there's some necromancy undertone to the ritual that took place with Jenny's bones. Perhaps her husband had administered something to make her bones special, to give her remains more power, or at least somebody clearly thinks so. But the truth is that we don't know why she was chosen. Maybe she wasn't all that important at all. But what happens next calls that into question. What we do know is that sometime later that same year, the heads of several cows and a horse were also discovered in the woods nearby, all linking back to the happenings at Clophill, which people began calling the Haunted Church or the Devil's Church. But even that wasn't the end. On an evening later that year, college students wearing white sheets were driven off the property, and who knows what they were up to.
Probably some good old-fashioned romping in the sheets.
Well, I don't, yeah, that's not what I would call that, but it could have been anything. But I think that they were probably messing around because they had heard about the ritual. After several attempts, Reverend Barker eventually restored the graves on the property, and Jenny's remains were reinterred, meaning that they were buried
Mm.
and set to rest again. In 1969, the site was once again desecrated. This time it happened on Midsummer's Eve, a significant day for the practice of magic. Reverend Barker was worried the very same grave, that of Jenny Humblestone, as well as others, would be broken into yet again, perhaps by some copycat or kids trying to pull a prank. In order to deter that, he sat vigil in the church ruins for 3 nights, waiting and watching. Now, keep in mind, the church did not have a roof during this time period, so he was
Mm-hmm.
literally sitting, like camping out in these ruins because he didn't want anybody to mess with the dead around the church.
That's so sweet.
When nothing happened in those 3 nights, the vicar returned to his normal routine. But the very next night that he wasn't there, the vandals returned.
Oh my.
Graves were once again desecrated. Luckily, no bones were removed or stolen, but it was enough to cause Reverend Barker to take Jenny's bones back in order to try to protect them himself. Initially, he didn't have a place for them, so he wrapped them up carefully and carried them around in his trunk, the trunk of his car. Eventually, he did hide them somewhere, though no one truly knows where, and I couldn't find it in my research as to where they ended up. Unfortunately for him, taking her bones, or potentially angering those who wanted them, seemed to have caused him to be cursed. His young daughter soon after died in a tragic car crash, and that's not all. He himself suffered from illness, and some even think he was driven mad. What is historically known is that he retired as the vicar of Clophill later that very same year in 1969 and moved away from the town altogether. But perhaps he took the curse or part of the church's darkness with him, because one story claims that despite moving, he found ceremonial stones and burned effigies outside his home one morning.
What? Maybe that's just a coincidence.
Maybe. That's an
Also,
awful big
by the
coincidence,
way,
but
I like that his like solution to people messing with the bones is just to steal the bones himself.
right? That's not a very like pastorly thing to do, maybe that you would think about,
Right. You
you
can't
know?
have them. I'm taking them. Yeah.
But it is an interesting way to resolve that. I think people in different situations sometimes are driven to do things because they're not being listened to. And it seems like one of those things where the feel I got from the story was that he kept trying to protect the graves and her bones, especially himself, over and over again, but he didn't really seem like he was getting help.
Right. And so it's just like, fine,
Yeah,
I'll
he's
just
like,
take
you
them
know
with
what?
me.
I'll just take it. It's kind of like the national treasure. Like he's just gonna steal the Declaration of Independence because they wouldn't listen to him that it was gonna be stolen. So he just did it
Right. It's like,
himself.
okay, well, here we go. I like it.
The rituals and the church desecration didn't end with him. Once more, in 1975, more graves were robbed and the bones left scattered across the church's floor. And for those of you paying attention, you might have noticed the years I mentioned: 63, 69, 75. What do they have in common?
They are prime numbers.
I don't think so, but good
I'm not
thinking.
just guessing.
What they are is 6 years apart.
Oh, okay. No,
Exactly.
that's an easier math than what I tried to do.
So between 63 and 69 is 6 years, 69 and 75 is 6 years. And many people anticipated that another attack would happen in the next 6 years to finish the sequence 666, which is what? The devil's number.
Oh my gosh.
However, before that could happen, the headstones in the graves of the church were removed and stacked on the perimeter of the church property. The graves themselves were leveled and essentially hiding them, like they were all covered with sod, buried, and hidden in the ground, no longer marked. Many people think that this happened to prevent the anticipated third desecration, the 666. But the church society claimed it was just to enable mowing and landscaping around the old church. What do you believe?
That's just their cover. That's what they say.
So then the grounds, they deteriorated over time. And eventually, all the way up in 2018 now, the church society president made the decision to move the headstones, which were previously on the perimeter of the property, and lay them all face down to create a stone path to the church.
What? That's weird.
It is weird.
That's just like people walking on people's gravestones that are now like not even recognizable because they're face down.
That's exactly right. So they created this stone path, or she decided and created this stone path as part of the church restoration project. And they called it the Poetry Path. Yeah, I don't know. But needless to say, a great number of church members, as well as local residents, did not agree with her, believing the use to be disrespectful, particularly because the names were lost and unreadable and their memories walked on.
That's horrible. I don't know who allowed that.
I feel like you need a whole council to decide something like that. But from what I read, it was one woman who was the leader of the society.
Well, shoot.
In more recent years, a popular footpath passes near enough to the old church that a few eco lodges were built next door to house overnight guests who were traveling through. Since then, with witnesses so close by on a daily basis, there has been no further accounts of vandalism. Yay! Guests in the lodges, like everyone else, are generally not permitted to visit the ruins at night, although anybody can go to them in the day. They have even installed an alarm to safeguard the church property now.
So it's just an open air church.
Yeah,
with
it's completely open. The roof's still not on it. The windows still aren't in it.
Weird.
So, despite not being permitted to visit the ruins at night, I read the account of one guest who got special permission to do so. And can you guess the profession of that special guest, what he used to be?
Apothecary.
No, a former minister.
Okay, I was close. Just kidding.
So, Peter Laws, a former minister and now actually a reporter and entertainer on YouTube. He does a bunch of different stuff. He went for a visit and stayed in one of the eco lodges next door. He was permitted to spend a few minutes in the rooms at night. And when he got back to his room and laid down, he heard someone what sounded to be walking around the outside of the little one-room lodge.
Oh my gosh.
The footsteps seemed to circle the building for several minutes until he worked up the courage to get up and pull back the curtains. That's when they immediately stopped, and outside he saw no one.
Mm.
Though he said it might have been the host checking on the property, it still set him on edge. And to top off his experience, the next morning, as he left and closed the door behind him, he found the room number placard next to the exterior door hanging upside down.
Ew, that's so weird.
Yeah, it is weird. I would be really creeped out. I don't like small buildings like that, like a little cabin or like a little one room somewhere. It doesn't feel very
I
well
know.
protected to me.
When you're all by yourself, I feel like a beginning of a horror
Horror
movie.
movie. Yeah, for sure. His personal account that I found is just the beginning. It's skimming the surface of what or who might be haunting the property. So, what I have for you now are accounts, personal accounts. And there were so many of these. Honestly, I probably took maybe a third of the ones that I read, and I could have kept on reading. So,
Oh gosh.
this is what I have for you. In 1963, right after the first ritual site was found, a TV crew from the show This Week wanted to do a segment on the black magic being performed there. Reporter Eric Maple climbed down into Jenny's open grave to give the report, only to then faint. He fainted in that grave, not once, but twice during filming.
Maybe he's like claustrophobic and doesn't know it. It's his like worst
Maybe.
fear. It's his worst fear. And
But
then
he was
he's like doing that.
standing like, yeah, I mean it's open, right? It's open air. But yeah, it's still a small space. It could be. In addition, the film crew kept having film malfunction in their cameras, and a bunch of the film ended up being lost.
That's weird.
Then, after leaving, the crew said the site felt absolutely evil and they would not return for further footage.
Eek.
In 1969, after the second church desecration, a couple was driving down Great Lane, a road that ran parallel to the church path. In the early morning hours, they were delivering newspapers house to house. In the darkness, they saw a bright light in front of them, growing larger and larger, coming down the road. Initially, they believed it to be another vehicle, but as it got closer, they realized it was a man on horseback carrying a lantern. They pulled their car off to one side and turned off the engine and lights so as to not spook the horse. The horse and rider continued toward them, cantering closer and closer until they could see the figure more clearly. Strangely, the man was hooded and robed like a monk. The couple watched, unease growing, as he kept on the same path toward the car. All at once they froze as both horse and rider rode straight through the car. They dared not
What?
look behind them, instead turning the car back on and immediately speeding away. Crazy, huh?
Yeah. You know what's so weird about that? I went to a thrift store today and they had this little metal figurine of a horse with a monk rider on it.
No way.
Yeah. And I thought it
That's
was so
crazy.
cool. I was gonna get it for my sister and brother-in-law, but what are the chances?
Wow. I wonder if there's an image that's been around
Repeated?
from that
Right, because
time. Yeah.
I've never heard that before.
The story goes a little deeper because about a year later, they were talking to a local woman who asked if they had ever seen a hooded man on horseback in that area. Apparently, the woman used to live on Great Lane with her family before they were forced to move due to the continuous frightening encounters with that same man.
Oh, no, thank you.
This entity, this monk, is the most well known haunting at Clophill. He has shown up in photos, both as a robed person, as a black mass, as well as been seen on the surrounding roads and around the church itself, both on horseback and simply floating.
Ugh, that's so strange. Now I'm gonna have nightmares.
But wait, because there's more.
Oh, great.
In 1975, a punk band called UK Decay shot an album cover at Clophill. During the shoot, something otherworldly happened that scared them so badly that they all ran screaming from the ruins, got into their car, and drove down the lane. They didn't get far before they were impeded by a white horse trotting down the same road. When the horse turned down a bend, it suddenly vanished. These strange occurrences were just that, until the band faced a string of bad luck and financial hardship that caused them to claim that the old church or something therein had cursed them.
I
So,
mean, I don't doubt it. When people
so
do rituals and stuff like that, it is a thing.
It is a thing, yes. So well put. It is a thing.
Yeah.
Yes, I do think it changes a space. I think it does taint what was holy ground to do something like that.
Right. It opens something up, some
Hmm.
kind of a situation where now it's okay to be evil.
I don't know that I would put it just that way. That it's
That's how
okay
I
to
put
be
it.
evil.
Now it's okay to be evil in this space
It does taint the space, and I think it invites things in, much like a Ouija board when you don't know how you're using it, or anything
when you
like
don't
that.
know
Doing
how it
a
works.
seance of any kind, when you're opening a door, when you're inviting things in and you don't understand what those
Hmm.
things are, or even if you do, if you understand what those things are and you know they're dark, but you're playing around with it, right? Because you're
Hmm.
into black magic,
Right.
then yeah, I think there are dark things that exist, and I think that they hear that call and that they come.
Agreed. Ugh.
Melanie Pierce recounts a story she heard through a friend having to do with the monk. In the late 1980s, I knew a man who was a friend of someone in a motorcycle club. I lived in Bedfordshire at the time and knew of Clophill, but had not been there myself. He told me about the old church and about one night when the motorcycle gang had made their way up to the church because it was known to be a spooky place and they thought it would be a laugh to hang out there. It was autumn, moving into winter time, and it was dark outside, but they stayed outside the church messing about and having a laugh. At some point in the evening, they saw a group of what looked like monks, all dressed in black, leave the church, but then realized that they were coming toward them quite fast. They started to get freaked out by this, and even more so when they also realized that there were no feet and that they were actually floating off the ground toward them.
Oh my
Suffice to
gosh.
say, they left in a great hurry.
Floating figures reminds me of that one Buffy and the Vampire Slayer with those guys with weird faces and long fingers
Yeah,
that float around the
that made
town.
everybody quiet. Yeah.
Yes, I had nightmares about that episode for months.
Yeah, that freaked me out too.
So
Who
if
else
I
remembers
saw
that?
if I saw people who never saw it are like, what the heck? If I saw a group of floating monk black figures rushing at me floating, I would, oh my gosh. That's the worst I've heard all season.
In the 90s, a small acting group was filming a short in the ruins. One of the group members recounted that they were standing together when they saw a dark shape, enormously tall, coming towards them, hunched over, it seemed. They both ran immediately, and something shoved the actress, who fell into him. She was terrified. He then felt something grab his arm, but couldn't see anything there, and eventually they got back to their group and counted that everybody was where they should be.
That's weird.
Damien Odell, head of the Anglia Paranormal Investigation Society, theorizes that the main monk like entity haunting the ruins is some kind of guardian. One time when he investigated there, they were heading home for the night and suddenly heard a light pattering sound all around them, like many little things hitting the foliage and the underbrush and the ground all at once. The sound got louder and louder, similar to hail falling, but there were no clouds. And then, all at once, it stopped. He attributes this kind of environmental manipulation to be a sign of an elemental spirit, and he thinks
Oh,
that the
interesting.
elemental might have taken on the guise of a monk for the religious undertones of the property.
Interesting. That makes it slightly less scary, but
I mean,
still
elementals
scary.
are still scary. That's like, I took it to be like, okay, this is the same thing as like the goat face or the frog face, or what was the other one we called the
Goat
toad
face, frog
man?
face. Yeah. Sheep,
Because
sheep
those
face.
those are also elemental spirits. So what
Right, and they
who's to
take the shape.
say,
Yeah.
yeah, it just doesn't take the shape of what it wants to on the property, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this
Correct.
in this instance, it took the shape of a monk as opposed to a goat face.
That's interesting. Very well could be.
In 1972, a member of the Society of Psychical Research, Tony Browell, was traveling with his wife and they decided to stop at the historic site and take a few photos. After getting home and developing the film, because that that period, it's not instant, guys. It's not on our phone. We have to develop the film, okay?
It was also
Uh
maybe better at catching things,
yeah, I
that
think
kind of
it could have
film.
been because of the way that
Yeah,
the light strobing and stuff worked differently. But
right. How it's capturing it
mhm.
is different than today's. Yeah.
So after they got home and developed the film, one photo showed a dark, hunched figure in Victorian clothes, either a dress or robes of some kind, through a window. But beyond that window was actually a 6 foot drop, meaning that it couldn't have been a real human figure, even somebody else that they didn't see when they were there. He theorized it might be a prior vicar floating where there once was a pulpit, preaching to a now empty church. However, others believe it could be the ghost of Jenny, or possibly another well known ghost of the church who goes by the name of Sophie. And that name is gathered from the gravestone that is at the church. And her name on the gravestone is Sophie Mendham, as a woman who died in 1893.
They looked this up before the gravestones were placed face down.
Oh, yeah, people have pictures of the gravestone.
Okay.
It says Sophie. So they think it could be her as well. One final ghost I'm going to tell you about that is said to haunt St. Mary's is that of a young man who had died in a motorcycle accident nearby. Some visitors continue to report seeing a man in a leather jacket or dark clothing watching them, as if intrigued with why they might be there. My favorite of these stories was a woman in 1996 who was at the ruins taking photos for a final project of her photography degree. She looked up to see a young man in motorcycle leathers, and she thought it odd considering the hot summer weather. But she remained polite as he asked her what she was doing there, and she told him. And then she politely nodded as he told her that some of his relatives were buried nearby. That's when she noticed his helmet sitting on a window ledge, blocking her shot. Upon asking him to move it, she turned back to look at him, and he was gone. No helmet, no bike, not even footprints or tire tracks, just the lingering feeling of being watched.
Interesting.
Needless to say, modern visitors continue having run ins with dark figures, cold spots, strange noises, disembodied voices, and even the smell of rotting. In addition, many locals have reported seeing a light floating around the ruins at night, but when police are sent to check, no one is there. And of course, there's now the alarm system. To this day, Old St. Mary's Church at Clophill is regarded as one of the most haunted locations in the country, though what entities may be there and their intentions remain to this day unknown. Could it be an elemental guardian in the guise of a monk trying to protect the land? Or perhaps a real monk from the 1400s who himself practiced something dark, or even a demon called to the church by the horrendous murder nearby and the black magic that took place within? I'll leave that to you to decide. The end.
That was a great one. How fun.
Autumn, what is your boo scale rating of Clophill Church?
I was thinking about this because I knew it was coming. And I am going to do a 4 because
Yay! I don't know why I'm excited
because
about that.
because I feel like I would go and investigate there and I don't need to spend the night because that sounded horrifying. The activity would just be interesting and I would investigate until those floating figures came at me and then I'd be out of there.
The monk figures.
Yeah, that I'd be like, I'm leaving. But yeah, that was great.
I think that's what got to me the most was the monk. I when I read that part of the story, I was like, okay, I guess I'm doing this one because that just freaked me out. I don't know why monks are so scary.
Yeah,
Guys,
they
why are monks
are.
scary?
And they come up in the UK a lot in our like
Yeah.
or in our international stories. There's like a
Hmm.
lot of monks at churches and castles and I think that's interesting. I'm not sure why exactly that would be.
I'm trying to think if there was like an equivalent in the US that comes up a lot, aside from like a lady in white or something.
Yeah, that's just standard though, I feel like across no matter
Yeah,
where. But
everywhere has that. I was also intrigued and wondering who do you think the monk is? Do you think it's a real monk? Do you feel like it's an elemental? What's your take on the whole haunting?
an elemental is a good guess. I like that something's protecting it from everything rather than someone had opened something evil and something evil's lurking about. So I'm going to go with that theory in my head for sleeping later. I also feel like there could just be a lot of activity because of all the unrest.
Yeah.
Like all those people who have been forgotten or just not protected, or I just don't feel like it's very good stewardship of the church. I mean, I could just think that there would just be a lot of activity just from that.
Yeah, I do think that there are probably several entities that make themselves known in different ways, but I think very specifically the entity that people are seeing and that look like a monk, I don't think is an actual monk.
Yeah,
My instinct says it's either like some sort of dark demon entity that was conjured or called there, or an elemental protecting the area.
right. It could be just any type of shadow figure too that's being interpreted that way. Ooh, what would you give it though?
I would probably give it a 3. I would be borderline 3 to 4. You said you wouldn't stay there the night, which is year 4, right?
Yeah,
That's how you determine if it's a 4. Like 5
yeah.
is you won't go, 4 is you won't stay the
Stay
night.
the night. Yeah.
I think I would stay the night there, so that's why I think I would go 3.
Hmm.
I would even camp out in the ruins because
Oh my gosh.
I think it would be creepy but interesting and having like a little campfire and just
I mean,
watching.
it might be beautiful, right?
Right,
And
it
like
could
that
be.
rustic, but also not.
If it is something genuinely protecting the church, and if you go there with the right intentions and you speak your piece about, I'm here trying to get the stories of the people that passed and are still buried here. I don't mean any harm by being here. I'm not going
Hmm.
to disturb anything. I'm not going to vandalize anything. Then I think that you could get some really cool evidence. But yeah, if I
Yeah.
saw a monk, I would run the other way.
You'd be like, just kidding, I'm not staying the
Yeah,
night.
I'd be like, okay, just kidding. It's a 4. See ya. Just
Right,
run.
exactly.
Or if I heard like horse hooves in the
Oh
nighttime,
my
I
gosh.
think that would freak me out
Even
too.
the walking around the cabin is scary to
Yeah.
me.
But you can't rule out other people, right? When you're not on the property, you're not on the church property itself, you're next door. The host could be there, other people could be on that property
Right,
because
but
that's
it would
that's
just
not
still scare
alarmed.
me.
I would go stay in that property too. I think that that would be fun to do. All right. Well, that sums up my Bedfordshire, UK, Clophill Church. Autumn, it is your turn. What do you have for me?
Okay, crap. Hang on.
This is a great start.
Okay. It might surprise you to learn that one of the most haunted places in the world isn't a castle, it isn't an abandoned asylum, it's public transportation. Today we journey to deep beneath London. This is the London Underground, the Tube. It carries millions
Ooh.
of, I know, so fun. It carries millions of commuters every day. People scrolling their phones, running late for work, packing shoulder to shoulder in metal carriages. But beneath the city of London, something else rides the rails. The underground is said to have one of the highest concentrations of ghost stories in the world. Ancient Egyptian priestesses, Celtic warrior queens, Victorian actors still pacing platforms, screaming figures replaying their final moments, even maintenance workers still clutching old oil lamps, unaware that their last shift ended decades ago. And the question is how? How does something we think of as modern, mechanical, almost sterile collect so many spirits? Well, the London Underground isn't as modern as it feels. It's the oldest underground metro system in the world. Today, the network boasts 11 lines, 270 stations, and 250 miles of track. The very first line, the Metropolitan Railway, opened in 1863, and by
Oh, that's
1890,
actually a lot older than I would
right?
think.
You don't even think there's like electrical vehicles at that point. By 1890, the City and South London Railway became the first deep level electric underground railway in the world. Then came the Central Line, the Bakerloo, the Piccadilly, which would become the Northern Line, all were operational by the early 1900s. And in that amount of time, people have died. Passengers lost in accidents, suicides, the occasional murder, workers killed during construction, digging through unstable soil, flooding tunnels, seeping sewage, pockets of deadly gas, men laboring by lamplight in suffocating darknesses. But it's not just the deaths that happened in the tunnels, it's what the tunnels disturbed.
Do you think all progress, like all industrial, all like all the progress in the world that has been made in the way of industry and stuff has been met with death?
Yeah.
With like, I mean, maybe it's just as simple as that, but that just popped into my head as you were saying all these people like in the construction process and trying to figure things out and dealing with gas pockets and different things. And I'm thinking, wow, like the number of times that we've had stories where people have sacrificed their lives to the progress being made,
And
like
they probably
on a
didn't
building or
know,
something else.
right? They probably didn't know they were sacrificing, but it's kind of like any progress takes chances that we're uncertain about because we don't know the effects. We don't know how to do something we haven't learned yet,
It just
right?
makes me feel like people in these time periods, well, I mean, there's still progress being made now, but it makes me feel like people in these time periods were so much braver than I feel like people are today.
No, because I feel like we're doing that now and we're just more slowly hurting ourselves
Oh, that's an
with
interesting concept.
like AI and
Mm.
like carbon poisoning the earth and like killing trees and AI like burning through fossil fuels. And I just feel like we are the progress meeting death. It's just a slower death.
Or a bigger project
Yep.
when you look at it, like not as a small microcosm of a building, but the larger world.
Yeah. So
Sorry for the side note. You can continue.
I'm
You were saying it
gonna
might have
go
been where
back
they
a little bit.
disturbed.
Yeah, just in case. But it's not just the deaths that happened in the tunnels, it's what the tunnels disturbed. To build the underground, engineers carved through churchyards, crypts, burial grounds, and plague pits. There are so many historic stories and paranormal experiences to share, but for the sake of not having a 10-hour podcast, I am also Laura, only focusing on a handful of the reports I read and only a few of the 270 stations.
Oh gosh, okay. Like, are we saying like three or because it's a lot of
Yeah, we'll see
stations.
how many we can get through. Okay, this is one of 270. Starting number one.
All right,
Can you
guys,
imagine?
get
Can you
settled
imagine
in.
if I was like, okay, we're going to go through each station and the reports.
I
Number one.
recommend you take a pause and go heat yourself up some hot chocolate or possibly popcorn.
It'll be
We're
a
in it for the
long
long run.
night. Okay, the British Museum Station. The British Museum Station, once part of the Central Line, is what's known as a ghost station. And that doesn't automatically mean spooky, it means it's closed. It opened in 1900 to serve the nearby British Museum, and then it closed in 1933 because the Holborn Station, less than 100 meters away, was just better. So basically, that station was ghosted.
Funny.
So, that joke. Now it sits unused, occasionally used for storage, maintenance, or filming, and if you're lucky or unlucky, you can sometimes glimpse it through the dark as your train rattles past old tiles, vintage ads. The station is just frozen in time. But this station didn't just become a ghost station. It allegedly has a ghost, and not just any ghost, it's an ancient Egyptian priestess. According to legend, a secret tunnel linked the station directly to the British Museum, and late at night, down in that tunnel, a figure appears, wearing a headdress, ancient robes, and screaming.
What?
Not not like polite Victorian whispering, but full bone rattling shrieks echoing through the tunnels. Her name is Amun Ra.
But
Yes,
how?
like from the mummy.
But how? Why would
I'm
she be
gonna
there?
go in it. So she is said to be the spirit attached to the infamous unlucky mummy, a supposedly cursed Egyptian artifact housed in the British Museum.
Hmm.
Now, here's where things get a little messy. So, if you're thinking of the movie Mummy, it kind of exactly happen like that in real life, per
Oh,
se.
well, I didn't know that was based on a real life story.
Yeah, because Amun-Ra was unlucky. And if you remember the mummy, kind of like anyone who was part of this, what do you call it, explorer tribe, got cursed, right? And died different ways. So in the late 1800s, an Englishman named Thomas Douglas Murray allegedly purchased a 3,500-year-old mummy case in Luxor. Soon after, he lost an arm in a shooting accident. His servants died. Then a journalist who borrowed the case experienced his own set of family deaths, broken engagements, and his dogs went mad.
Oh, poor pups.
The mummy case passed from person to person, allegedly leaving disaster in its wake.
Did
A
you say
photo-
the mummy case?
yeah, it's
Okay.
just the case that like Amun-Ra, this cursed mummy, supposedly was in.
For a second, I thought you said mummy kiss, and then I was going right back to Buffy.
Yeah. A photographer claimed that when he developed images of the case that he took pictures of, he saw the face of a living Egyptian woman superimposed over the coffin itself.
Mm.
Someone brought the photo home and every piece of glass in their house shattered.
Ooh.
Yeah, very casual, you know.
That's like because she's screaming, like somebody screams at the right pitch and they can break glass.
Oh, but they can't hear it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So eventually, the case was donated to the British Museum because everyone was like, nah, bro.
Okay.
Museum staff reported sobbing and hammering noises coming from the coffin itself. Visitors who sketch it like drawing, allegedly also died. One person reportedly shot himself. Even the delivery man who brought it into the museum supposedly passed away soon after.
What?
Yeah. And then, because apparently haunting one building isn't enough, Amun-Ra decided to expand her commute. Staff and passengers at the British Museum station reported hearing shrieks in the tunnels. The press offered cash rewards to anyone willing to spend a night there alone.
What? No
Yeah.
way.
The press is
I
like,
want to do it.
if you want to spend the night there alone, we will pay you money. No one volunteered. That's how prevalent these stories were.
When was this?
Well, this is when it was like just close, like the 1930s.
Okay. So
Like
it
it
was,
was
but
still open.
because I think like the 20s had a sort of seance kind of
Yeah, there was
fad.
like a spiritualism.
Yeah,
Yeah.
spiritualism. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's just after that. Okay.
Just around the same time period, yeah. So, as I said before, what arrived in London wasn't even the mummy itself, it was just the mummy case. So there was no preserved priestess inside, and there's no confirmed royal actually named Amun-Ra, just a coffin with a sad looking carved face on it. So even if the facts are a little murky, and even if the curse is slightly exaggerated, British Museum Station closed in 1933, but it's still down there. And to this day, at the nearby Holborn Station, people claim that sometimes they hear shrieks echoing down the tunnels. Then we have the Bank Underground Station. The Bank Underground Station sits right in the heart of London's financial district. It's one of the oldest and busiest stations on the tube. Legend says part of the station was built on a plague pit. What we do know is that the Northern Line ticket hall used to be the crypt of St. Mary Woolnoth Church.
Oh, it's another St. Mary's.
Yeah, and
And
another
another
burial.
plague pit.
Right. So,
Connections.
when the station was constructed in 1900, somewhere between 7 and 8,000 bodies were removed from the crypt.
Ugh.
Some were reburied in the Nunhead Cemetery in South London, but others, the records are unclear. They're like, get fuzzy. One of the doorways commuters still use today to get into that station is the entrance to the original crypt.
Whoa.
So as you're commuting and you're like walking through the ticket revolving thing or whatever,
Yeah,
down
you're
there,
going into the
you're
crypt
like
essentially.
going into what was a mass burial vault.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I wonder if they've left any of the like stonework or anything the same. Like if there's any
Yeah,
part of it where they're like, this is the original cornerstone or
maybe. I
something,
mean,
you
I
know?
think that was part of the thing is like, oh, this is well constructed. We'll just leave it as the entrance.
Hmm.
But it would be interesting to know. I'd love to see. I'll look up some pictures and post them on our page. So then that same station was struck directly by a German bomb in January 1941 while it was being used as an air raid shelter. 56 people were killed, which is a very real tragedy. Passengers and staff often describe a strange heaviness at the station. Sadness, hopelessness, anxiety. There have been reports of foul, unexplained smells drifting through the station, which historically the crypt of St. Mary Woolnoth was notorious for being overcrowded and very pungent. Late night staff had reported banging noises from empty lifts and doors slamming after the station had been closed. But the most famous presence connected to the bank is a spirit named Sarah Whitehead, better known as the Black Nun or Old Lady of Threadneedle Street.
Ooh, that sounds, I don't know. The old lady of
Threadneedle
Threadneedle
Street.
Street sounds kind
Yeah.
of like very sharp, like needle fingertips or something. It feels like creepy. I don't know.
It does feel creepy. I asked AI to generate me with ash blonde hair earlier this evening, and it is not pretty.
Are you
It
saying
is
you
like,
became the old lady
yes,
of Needle
I
Street?
became the old lady of Threadneedle Street because it looks like I'm like I aged 40 years. It is
Oh,
not good.
that's
Anyway,
not
back
nice.
to the story. So, in early 1800s, Sarah's brother Philip Whitehead worked as a clerk at the nearby Bank of England. Surrounded by wealthy financiers, Philip developed an expensive taste on a very unexpensive salary. He borrowed money and invested badly, and he was a notorious gambler. He eventually, in a moment of desperation, forged a check for £87. Do you want to attempt that conversion into today's dollars?
Probably no. When was it?
The early 1800s,
Oh, yeah. This is going to be
87
definitely right on.
pounds.
Let's say 45 grand.
It's not too bad off. It's
What?
$3,000.
That's off.
Okay, he was caught, arrested, and was sent to Newgate Prison. In 1812, at the age of 36, he was executed. Sarah, who was deeply devoted to her brother, was shielded from the truth at first. But when she eventually learned of his execution, the shock reportedly shattered her sanity. She began dressing entirely in black and started visiting the Bank of England every single day, asking the other clerks, "Have you seen my brother today?" Out of pity, they would reply gently, "No, not today, ma'am." She would nod, chat for a while, and leave, saying she would return tomorrow. And she did, for years. At first, staff reportedly treated her kindly, offering food, small sums of money, even a place to sit and wait. But as time passed and her mental state declined even further, her daily appearances became more unsettling. Still dressed in black, still asking the same question, still unable to accept the heartbreaking truth. She became known as the Black Nun, again, the Old Lady of Threadneedle Street, a nickname that also became associated with the bank itself. Sarah is believed to have died sometime between 1837 and 1842. However, she may never have left. Sightings of a woman dressed all in black have been reported around the Bank of England and inside the bank underground station. Some claim she approaches passerbys and quietly asks if they've seen her brother. In the 1970s, two men in the bank's court garden reported seeing a black-clad woman walking along a path made from old tombstones.
What is happening in these stories? British
But
people, what are you doing?
why are they making, I mean, this bank garden courtyard has a path made from old tombstones. Then she fell to her knees and vanished. There's even speculation that she may have been buried in the vault of St. Mary Woolnoth, the crypt that later became the station's ticket hall.
Mm.
If so, her remains would have been among those disturbed during construction, which might explain why her presence is so often linked to the underground itself. In 2001, a commuter reported seeing her inside the station. More chilling still is the account from a London Underground employee working around 2 a.m. He was in the locked, deserted station. He was watching the CCTV, security cameras, and he noticed what appeared to be a small, elderly woman standing in a long corridor near a sharp bend leading to a staircase. Confused because the station was closed and secured, he went to investigate. As he approached, the woman looked up at him and then down again and calmly walked away the opposite direction. He hurried after her, but when he reached the bend in the corridor, she was gone. The stair gates just beyond were still padlocked. There was nowhere she could have exited. Over 100 cameras were checked and she didn't appear on a single one.
I bet you it makes him feel like he's going crazy too.
I think it would. If you're alone and you work a solo job where you're just constantly like visually stimulated by a static image, like I feel like your mind wants to see movement.
Even sometimes when
like
we
something.
see the, ghost shows, when we watch paranormal investigations and they're looking down a dark hallway, and I think, like, was that a shadow? I see some weird movement, but it's just weird light fluctuation, right? And your
Right, it's
your
just your
mind
eyes
starts playing
wanting
tricks
to.
on you.
Okay, station number 155. Just kidding. King's Cross Station. Have you heard of it?
Oh yeah, I'm familiar.
If you've ever tried to navigate the tangled yarn junction that is King's Cross and St. Pancras, I think that's how you say it, underground, you already know it feels like a maze designed by someone who hates you personally.
Okay.
But beneath the missed connections and aggressive speed walking lies a very real tragedy. November 18th, 1987, at around 7:30 in the evening, a small fire started beneath the escalator. And when I say small, I mean that's probably fine. Except it wasn't fine. It erupted into a massive fireball, turning the station into an inferno that burned into the early hours of the morning. 31 people lost their lives. 100 were taken to a hospital. Hundreds more escaped through smoke-filled tunnels, some boarding tube trains that were still running.
Whoa.
Doesn't that sound like the most British evacuation imaginable? Yes,
Why?
terribly sorry about the flames, but the tube is still operational for your convenience. That's what I like picture the person on the audio saying. That was a
Like they were
horrible.
just barreling through fire, or I don't know. The
Yeah,
picture
it
in
was
my
like the
head is kind of
station was
fuzzy.
on fire, but the trains were like, oh, we'll make the stop. Come on in. Okay, bye.
Just get in quickly, you won't get
Yeah.
singed a bit.
Right. It was one of the worst disasters in the history of the London Underground, and some believe the station never quite recovered. Passengers have reported seeing a young woman in one of the tunnels leading to the underground. She appears to be around 25 years old, dressed in 1980s clothing. When I read that, I was like, what is she wearing? 1980s clothing, large puffy jacket.
Yeah, because normally it's like Victorian clothing. And you're
Right, but
like,
this was
great,
like
I can
19.
picture that. But 1980s, I imagine Saved by the Bell is actually
Yeah,
my
like
go-to for
really
80s.
colorful,
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah. So she's dressed in 1980s clothing, standing with her arms outstretched, sobbing uncontrollably. In the first widely reported sighting in 1998, a passerby stopped to ask if she was all right, but before the Good Samaritan could reach her, another commuter walked straight through the woman. Isn't that strange? Like you see someone and you're like gonna go up and talk to them, and someone else is like, la la la, I don't see anything. That'd be strange. Multiple passengers have reported seeing her since. She's always distraught, always alone, and always dressed in a puffy Bengal jacket. Just kidding. But always dressed like she stepped out of the 1980s. King's Cross also allegedly hosts a ghost of a Celtic warrior queen. According to a long-running story, Queen Boudica is buried somewhere beneath the mainline station. Some say she's buried at platform 8. Others insist it's 9 or 10.
9 3/4? Oh no.
I paused there because I was like, I have a note and it says Laura's gonna say, or maybe 9 3/4.
You know me too well,
I
apparently.
know. Queen Boudica I'm sure I'm not saying that right. Sorry, everybody. She led a ferocious revolt against the Roman rule around 60 AD. She destroyed a bunch of cities that I also can't pronounce, but I think it's Gloucester, St. Albans, and London.
London Enema? Is that what you're saying?
London.
Well, I'm pretty sure you don't get that one.
So she destroyed these cities in a blaze of fire and chariots before the Romans eventually ended up defeating her. Legend says that she took poison rather than being captured. To this day, archaeologists can find a reddish burnt layer in London's soil, which is physical evidence of the destruction of what she did.
Hmm.
Isn't that crazy? There were claims that her final battle took place in what is now the King's Cross area. In fact, an elephant skull with an axe embedded in it was discovered nearby.
That's so cool, actually. That reminds me of like Lord of the Rings.
They carbon dated it though, and the elephant turns out to be Neolithic, which is 1,000 years too early.
Whoa.
So it was even before
That's
that.
still pretty
But
cool.
can we just say how cool? Like that survived so many years? Like what was happening?
Is that in a museum now somewhere that you can go
I
see?
I don't know, but I hope so because that's crazy. Like I want to know more about that battle, right?
Right.
Anyway,
That guy probably haunts the next station.
next or that one, maybe that's who's
Or
haunting it.
maybe the elephant spirit haunts down there.
Ooh, an elephant spirit. We don't
We
have
haven't had
that.
one of those yet. Not yet.
Yeah. Modern historians aren't really sure if Boudica actually fought her last battle there or not. So she could be buried around King's Cross or possibly not. Perhaps because there's something poetic about a British queen who resisted continental superpower. Being imagined she's beneath one of London's busiest stations is so cool. That's why it's stuck. This like cool
It
legend,
could be.
right?
I mean, aren't ghost stories really just part of oral history? Like people have been telling oral stories passed down throughout all time, right?
Right,
That's like the oldest form of history is storytelling that way.
right.
So it's cool in a sense that whether these ghost stories are 100% real or not, like sometimes we talk about the legend, these stories actually exist because people have held on to them, have thought that some part of them was magical or cool or worth telling
Hmm.
again.
Right. And at King's Cross Station, you might encounter the sorrow of a 1987 tragedy or the restless spirit of a warrior queen.
I mean, I'd take the
Or,
warrior queen.
someone popping out of a wall at 9 3/4.
I'd also
I
take
do.
that.
The Bethnal Green Tube Station. During the Second World War, Bethnal Green Tube Station wasn't just a stop on the Central Line, it was a refuge. Like many of the other underground stations, as I previously mentioned, it became an air raid shelter when the Blitz turned London skies into something out of a nightmare. When the sirens wailed, thousands of the poverty stricken East End residents at the time, mainly women and children and elderly, because the men were all, off fighting the war,
Mm-hmm.
would head down the stairs, clutching blankets and gas masks and whatever bits of comfort they could carry. The station was fitted with around 5,000 bunks and could hold about 7,000 people.
That's
So
crazy.
this is basically like an entire underground village forming nearly every night when the sirens went out, and just neighbors sleeping side by side, trying to just survive.
It was their reality for so long.
Right. It's so scary. So then we have March 3rd, 1943. The sirens sounded again, like they did so many nights before. People rushed toward the station as they had so many times before. It was dark, blackout conditions, the stairways are narrow, and someone near the bottom, a woman carrying a little baby and a bundle of bedding, stumbled and fell.
Oh,
Another woman and child tripped over her, and then more and more people fell. and within seconds, the staircase became a chaotic scene. People didn't know what was happening, and out of fear and desperation about what might be happening up top, like above, people were confused at the commotion, and they tried even harder to reach the safety of the bottom of the stairs. So nearly 300 people ended up falling, and those at the bottom were trapped beneath a crushing weight of bodies. Panic rippled upward. People struggled to stand, to breathe, to climb. There was nowhere to go. 173 people died that night, and most
Wow.
of them were women and children. Only 27 were men. And the tragedy was caused by just panic and one single misstep. The government, worried about wartime morale, delayed reporting the disaster for 36 hours. And when the news did break, it wasn't totally transparent, and it was initially suggested that a bomb had caused all the deaths. And a memorial plaque with the true story wasn't installed for 50 years.
Wow.
It
So
rem
how did they know what the true story was? It must have been
Well,
witnesses
because all
down
those people
below.
were there. Yeah. So it remains the largest loss of civilian life in Britain during the war from one single incident,
And
and
it
the
wasn't even
deadliest
the
ever
war.
to occur in the London Underground. I know. Isn't that crazy? It was just like a mistake. It was just trying to people not to be killed that led
Yeah,
to
that's
like
so sad.
yeah. So late at night, staff and passengers have reported hearing children crying, women screaming, and the sound of panic. Not loud and dramatic, but layered and chaotic and desperate. Definitely like the scene is replaying itself. In 1981, a station employee was working alone on the night shift. The station had closed, the gates were locked, and he was in his office doing paperwork, and he started hearing children crying. At first, he ignored it. Old stations make noises, pipes clink, and air moves, but the crying grew louder, and then came the sound of the women screaming. Not one voice, but many, shouting, panic, chaos. It went on for 10 or 15 minutes. He finally forced himself out of the office and into the ticket hall, but no one was there. The station was completely empty. The man said in his report, "I was frightened to go back to the office because of the noise down there. It was quite frightening, actually. I still don't want to go through Bethnal Green to this day. I can't forget it."
I don't blame him.
So at Aldgate Station, a few years ago, an electrician was working near the track when he slipped and fell straight onto a live rail of 22,000 volts. Miraculously, he survived. He was just knocked unconscious, had some bruising on his forehead, but that was it, which is already incredible. However, his co-workers later told investigators that just before he fell, they all saw an old lady standing near him, gently stroking his hair.
Before he fell?
Yeah. So,
Like she pushed him in?
well, yeah. So people are like, was she protecting him from not getting electrocuted, or was she the pusher?
Oh,
Yeah.
like maybe she put some protection on him before he
Yeah.
fell. Mm.
Yeah, interesting, right? So, also, staff working late shifts have reported hearing unexplained footsteps echoing through the empty tunnels, the kind where, stop walking when you try to look for them.
Hmm.
Employees claim that the station keeps a logbook specifically for ghost sightings just at this one station. So, this is also kind of interesting because this station in particular lies underneath and right next to the East End neighborhood that Jack the Ripper stalked and haunted in the late 1800s.
Ooh.
Yeah, so that's why that station's interesting.
And
Then
it
you
was
have,
there during the late 1800s because you said this was
right,
formed in like 18. I don't
right,
forgot what you said.
exactly. Yeah. Well, I don't know. So I'm not sure. I could look it up. 1876. So it was there.
Ooh, interesting.
I know.
So he could have used that
Creepy. He could have
station.
used the
He probably
station
did use that station.
to
Let's
get
just be
like
honest.
right. No one, well, people think he was probably like lived in that neighborhood.
That
I
doesn't mean he
mean,
still didn't use the
if you
station.
wanted to come into an area and then make a fast getaway on the tube, ooh, creepy. Then you have Liverpool Street Station. In 2015, during redevelopment work, it was confirmed that part of the station had been built straight through a 17th century plague pit. At least 30 bodies were uncovered, along with coffin remains and gravestone marked 1665.
Hmm.
Researchers even tested teeth from one of the skeletons and confirmed the cause of death was the bubonic plague.
Ugh.
Staff at the Liverpool Street are apparently very used to otherworldly happenings. Workers have reported the air feeling oppressive and heavy, and then others have spotted strange figures on the security cameras in the early hours of the morning. Shapes moving when no one should be there. Passengers have reported seeing a man in overalls pacing up and down the platform as if waiting for the train, but he never boards. He just waits there.
Maybe he was like a maintenance guy.
Yeah, could be, or a plague victim. So, quick side note, Laura, I read a few Reddit logs about people just commenting and sharing their stories of their paranormal experiences in the tube,
Mm-hmm.
and some just repeating or verifying some of the accounts I've already told you now.
Mm-hmm.
But this one lady on this Reddit feed, she wrote, quote, "These stories are ridiculous. I have lived here for 175 years and I have not once seen or felt anything paranormal."
That's the
Then,
winning comment.
then someone commented on her comment and said, "Are you the ghost?"
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if she was trying to be funny on purpose or if she like mistyped her age or what,
Probably it
but
was a mistype. Like maybe
hilarious.
maybe it was like 17.5 years or
Or
something.
maybe it was just like 75 years, like Ryan's
Yeah,
old lady, and she puts a one in there.
right.
I've lived here for 175 years.
Are you the
Okay.
ghost? Although I don't know what old ladies are
Are you
surfing
gonna?
Reddit. Like
But you never know. Maybe they are.
maybe
But, Londoners are very ahead of their time. They
are
could
they in
be.
general? Okay.
I'm guessing. That's how I picture them in my head. Like, I can
Okay.
picture an 80-year-old lady surfing Reddit. So, you might assume these are just stories passed between night shift workers and wide eyed commuters, except even the official Transport for London, that's kind of like our Department of Transportation, has had to acknowledge the whispers. Earlier this year, someone filed a Freedom of Information request asking the Transport for London whether they had any recorded reports of paranormal activity across the underground network since 2022. Why they specified that date and not the beginning of time, I don't know, but it makes me want to do a Freedom of Information Act since 1860 or whatever.
Right.
But because London runs on paperwork and polite compliance, the TfL, the Transportation Department, actually searched their incident logs for words like ghost, apparition, spirits, paranormal, and they found over 100 keyword matches. However, most of them were harmless phrases like someone being in good spirits or someone having too many spirits.
Mm.
Very British.
Yep.
So, but buried in the system was at least one genuine report, a distressed 15-year-old teenager at King's Cross Station claiming he had seen a ghost on the Metropolitan line on December of 2023 and was very distraught and had to be taken out of the system by the Transportation Authority.
The way you said that and had to be
Had to be
taken
taken
and then
out of the
pause. Had to
system.
be taken. Okay, where are they taken?
Which
Jeez.
means somewhere in the official transport archives of London, in between failures and ticket logs, there's paperwork that includes a genuine government official ghost report.
I mean, you kind of have to report things because it's an incident, right? And
Yeah,
and that's kind of your requirement because if there's some incident where somebody is, I don't know, even if they're freaking out because they spilled something or whatever it is, whatever the freak out would be, that would be something else, right?
right.
Like you still
Yeah,
have to report it regardless of if their perception is the truth or not, or
right.
if you
But
saw something they saw.
doesn't that make you want to file a Freedom of Information Act for our government and be
On
like,
what system? On all of it?
I don't know. Let's pick a system. Like
Can you
the
choose the White
Pentagon,
House?
can you choose the White House? We should look and see. You might be able to choose the White House. You could maybe request pilot logs or something for
Hmm,
mentions of UFOs. I'm not sure, but wouldn't that be cool? What a great use of freedom of information.
right. You never
They
know. It's
they
worth a
admitted to
try.
aliens
Everybody submit your Freedom of Information Act request. We'll all do it together. They'll just get inundated with all these requests.
and then they'll just come out and be like, "Here's all the ghost stories we have. We can't take it anymore."
Yep.
So that's it. That's my all my tube stories, but there's lots more. That was only like of stations.
55. So if you made it through those 50, no, just kidding. Somebody who skips
So,
to the end is like, what?
right. What? What is your ghost rating?
I'm going to give it a 3. I am more concerned about some of them than others. And most of them I just kind of think are cool, which maybe isn't the what you want, but like the Amon Ra, is that what you said?
Almond Raw lady, yeah.
Yeah. She to me is more just really interesting. It's very fascinating that there would be this curse and these other things tied to the case. Like I would want to investigate that. That seems almost a fictional story that could
Right.
be written.
It's kind of unique, right? Well, there was a fictional story written about it. It's called The Mummy.
Oh, right. No, what I mean to say is more of a along the same timelines, like without the romance, without all that other stuff.
Okay.
On the other hand, there's some very real tragedies that happened in some of the places. And I think that the one that was called Bethnal Green with the accidental fall and the number of people who died in that tragedy, that's just heartbreaking. And
Mm-hmm.
I do think that the energy of that place would be very difficult to go into, especially on a daily basis. So that's
Mm.
not somewhere I would want to go, not because it's necessarily haunted, but because I wouldn't want to go into that environment every day.
Right. Just knowing so many people died, you just can feel that oppression and that sadness,
Sadness.
whether
Mhm.
anything's still there or not. It just resides there, that energy of people's
And
final moments.
while Amon Ra, there's the screaming by herself, which is can be spooky. I think the spookier aspect is actually layered screaming of children and women and chaos. I think that that's a much greater fear factor than
Mm-hmm.
one single entity who might be screaming because she's mad or has a bad hair day or something. I don't know.
Right. Exactly. Even the residual haunting of that tragedy
Yeah,
would be upsetting.
intense. Yeah. So I would not go into Bethnal Green, probably. I don't know if it's a 5 because I would still go to say pay my respects. I don't know that I would investigate there. That would just be a hard one. But I think for everywhere else it would be a 3.
Good.
What about for you? What would you give it?
That's hard. I think I might give it a 2. I think the emotions are heavy. There was tragedy and there's lots of history, 200 years of history just in the metro system, which is
Mm-hmm.
crazy to think about. I don't think any of it is necessarily too scary. So if I'm doing it on a scary meter, it'd probably be a 2. It would be interesting to just investigate like Queen Boudica, see if she's actually there. And that Amon Ra story, like you said, is just interesting.
So I think I discovered something about myself and things I'm afraid of. And one of the things I discovered I'm afraid of in you telling this story are not necessarily underground transport, but underground crypt like areas, because it's much like going
Mm,
into a basement. And then when you said the thing about being alone, like they were going to pay somebody to stay alone the night.
yeah,
And I thought to myself, like, oh, I'd take that deal. It's investigating. But then I thought about being in a station alone and
yeah,
how creepy
underground.
that would be
And you don't have
underground.
like a lot of exit points, right? You're
Right. Like
kind
you're
of stuck.
trapped. So there's that
Yeah,
feeling of being trapped down there. Whereas if you
right.
go even into like my haunt, which is an open air church, there's so many more points to run if something happens, or to like scream into the night, or to see the stars in the trees, or to remind yourself like there's light can come in from other places too in case your light goes out, right?
Right. That's a good point. I never thought about like the claustrophobic nature of it. Well, that was a fun international episode that's 5 hours long.
Episode.
Episode that's forever long. So
Yeah, it was a fun episode.
Hopefully everyone made it through. Those were fun to research, and I learned a lot about the UK and its history. So thanks. Thanks, UK, for giving us that rich history.
Although I don't know that I want to go to King's Cross Station as much anymore.
What? I kind of do
You
extra.
want to more?
There's a gift shop down there.
Ooh, well, count me in then. I'm right back on the King's Cross train.
Right, exactly.
Guys, if somewhere has a gift shop, me and Autumn used to say this all the time. If there's a place with a gift shop, it's probably not haunted, but I think
But
I think we might change that. Because
but that's a gift shop of a different nature, not because of the hauntings, but
oh, so it
so it
has to be
doesn't
specifically,
because
yep.
the gift shop is Harry Potter
Mm.
and
Because I was thinking like
not.
we just talked about the Cavalier Hotel and that had a gift shop and
Right, and that's definitely haunted. So
yeah. Well, there you go. Thanks for listening, and as always,
happy
happy haunting.
haunting.
Time to
Oh,
sleep with the lights on.